And we are live.
Hey, welcome to CHAPS Darkside, episode 41.
41, yes.
41. Man, what a long week it has been. And here we are. It's a new one for me, being the kind of OCD control freak that I am, that we're going to have a show where I've got absolutely no control whatsoever. That was obviously by the start when I was rushing my son-in-law in here to fix my microphone. And now, of course, we've got a little bit of technical difficulty with the oncoming guest trying to fix their microphone. So, tonight, hopefully there'll be some people on here to have some good chatter. I've been talking for a while now about, get me out of this. I've been doing the ghost thing for 30 years. And in all those 30 years of paranormal investigation, and I've met all kinds of people in our field, really, honestly, I'd never tackled anything crypto, Mothman, whatever, and I never tackled UFOs. I have tried to get UFO people on the show before, and like UFOs, they're actually incredibly hard to nab and get on a show. And with the crypto people, kind of sort of the same thing, kind of. They're a little elusive. They all have the intentions to be around. And maybe they didn't want to have people make fun of them. I guess as ghost people, we're kind of used to that. And we get that all the time. But that's a topic I know a fair amount about. This, however, I don't. I've never gone and done a crypto investigation. I've never gone to search for Bigfoot or Loch Ness or, I lived in Kelowna where we had Ogopogo, but I never saw him in the water. And I thought, we last show, we kind of did it off the cuff and we talked about crypto and all the different things. And ironically, we had two people message. Hold on. Is that you messaging important stuff? Okay. So that's John putting the thumbs up, which means he's okay. Good. So both our guests are going to be good. So that we had the discussion about crypto, and I've never done it, and I'd like to get a chance to, but I'm just really not sure around this area how you could do so. And I didn't know a lot about it. I've seen old videos and whatever, and they all seem kind of caked up. And it's always we've got 3,000 of these around, right? Yeah, that we can film things with, but nobody ever seems to get a concise thing. We got heat-seeking cameras and all that, but we never can seem to find anything. So I have a hard time and kind of dispute a lot of that. That's kind of hypocritical because I don't know how many people dispute what we do, right? Tons. Mm-hmm. We even try to argue with our own line of science. We say that what we do is scientific. It's not. What we do is pragmatic. It's a pseudoscience at best. And I kind of myself believe that of all the other pseudosciences. We're just trying to prove belief. But that last show, if you remember, we had all kinds of chatter happening on from two gentlemen who have been watching our show for a while. Ironically, for these two gentlemen, we're going to make the next 3 episodes with them about them, right? These guys are like seasoned researchers of those other pseudosciences that I don't touch. Ironically, I work with one of them. Well, not in the locations I work at, but he works in the same company. And I've actually gone out and did some work with his branch before. John's a great guy. And Steve Kornic. I went to high school with Steve. Like, how ironic that somebody I work with and somebody I went to high school with, literally now at this point, probably the person that's known me the longest. He was the bass player in the band I was a singer in, if you can imagine how bad that was. He had musical talent to fall back on. I probably wasn't whatever great singer it was of the day. We were truly terrible. So he's got probably
I really like the self-esteem there.
Right. Well, I'm wondering, because he had said that he's going to tell 3 stories about me tonight, and one will be true. Now, Steve's an academic. He's an intellectual. So he's going to have a good memory. And that also scares me. We're both older guys. My memory of high school is not so prevalent. His probably is. So this might be an embarrassment for me, but I'm always up for a good game. But they're going to come on here and basically talk about their views on it, what they've researched of it. And tonight's episode is going to focus primarily, I guess all of it tonight, on Bigfoot. Bigfoot, right? Like we've all heard about it. Around here, I normally expect that to be some kind of meth addict walking up and down the street, but it's just because he hasn't shaved or brushed his hair. And then, they're going to, but you know what, though? Our most successful episode we've ever held was with a Bigfoot researcher. You remember that guy from Pennsylvania?
Mm-hmm.
We actually had like a ton of people on the show that night. It was fantastic. So we're going to get them on. I have no plans. I have no script.
Sorry.
What the hell? I normally have all kinds of notes that I'm going to work off of. I have nothing. So I'm just going to chirp on these guys as they talk. Easy peasy. You can do it too. We can have a game of this. Normally, you're making fun of me.
Mm-hmm.
You can chirp on them. What do you think?
I think it'll be great, and I hope they pick on you the whole time.
Wonderful. Well,
all right. I'm going to have them on.
Yep.
All right. Here we go.
Steve Kornic.
Good evening.
Good evening. My speaker's down. So Fiona has muted herself. Anyway, so the introduction here, obviously, John down in the left corner is a co-worker at Whitecap now, formerly known as Basco. And Steve Kornic on your right corner is works for down in Niagara, and was a high school friend of mine. We were in a band together.
Yes, I remember it all.
Oh my God, we were going to be fantastic, and then we weren't. Anyway, enough of that. So tonight's conversation is largely about Bigfoot. So, I know we're going to do like a 3-episode series, whether we talk about the crypto and all that. But tonight is Bigfoot because it's a big enough topic for a show. What inspired you to get interested in Bigfoot? Either or, man.
Go ahead, John.
Sure. Well, I guess I've always just, I had a cottage growing up when I was growing up north in Muskoka, and just grew up with a love of the outdoors, and especially like the Canadian Shield sort of type of areas, and just having that sort of always that passion for just being outdoors, as well as a good mystery. They kind of go hand in hand when it comes to this subject. I wasn't around when the famous Patty film sort of came out, but I guess when I was growing up, it was sort of like a Loch Ness monster, vampires, werewolves, all those kind of things. Like it's just another lore mythical type of thing. I guess during sort of COVID era, when everyone was kind of sitting at home, everybody was watching a lot of stuff on YouTube for just general entertainment, and watching a lot of Survivor Man, and seeing his stuff with Todd Standing. It was kind of funny. I was watching the episode with Todd Standing where he's showing these pictures of supposedly a close-up capture he got of Sasquatch. And at that exact moment, my mom happened to come walking through the door, and she looked at the TV and just screamed and ran out. And I kind of was baffled and kind of went running after her, and I said, what's wrong? What's wrong? And she said, what was that thing? I've seen that thing before. And I was kind of like, what? Really? And the thing with the Todd Standing footage is it's very controversial online. There's a lot of people who don't have a lot of credibility in him. He's a bit of an eccentric character. And that may just be because he is so far gone into this research, literally up in the mountains, on the ground, It's hard to say, but I just take it all with a grain of salt. To me, it's fun. Life is full of all kinds of problems, and this stuff is just fun. It's fun for me, as well as any kind of paranormal ghost hunting stuff. I do some of that with my own daughters. They're just getting into their teens now, and they started kind of getting into that stuff, and so we go out, and it's a fun way for me to spend time with them too. So I just started diving into it because I like a good mystery, and kind of like Steve, I'm an intellect too, and I'm kind of that. There's kind of a few types of people to me in the world. There's surface level people, excuse my little guy in the background, and people who just take things they see as fact, and that's fact, and they move on with life. And there's other people who don't, or who do kind of question things and say, well, what if, is there another possibility? And they dive a little deeper. And I'm kind of one of those people who kind of, has to know why things work and has to know, how they work. So I like to dive really deep into some stuff. And this is just one of those things.
Absolutely.
Cool.
And Steve, what you got so dwelled on the Bigfoot?
Well, quite simply, growing up in the 70s, we had access to all that stuff coming out. I mean, there's the Legend of Boggy Creek is a famous one. Whenever that came on the Not So Great Movies, I had to sit down and watch it. The Patterson-Gimlin film, which for years I was kind of on the fence about, but now I've decided that this thing actually is real. So, and then you get into, you saw where I lived, Dave, as a kid, no one around. So basically, sorry, Matt decided to join the show. But anyways, you would read everything you could, and it just kept on going from there. And that led into other bits of cryptozoology and such. And I never realized until being able to sit out in the vineyard and, become part of nature again, how much we've actually lost with the connection with nature and such. For instance, I can be listening on isolation mode with my headphones out there. I know when something is standing beside me without it touching me.
Sure, you get that feeling.
Exactly. And so, you start thinking, okay, what is really, really out there? And, everyone makes fun of cryptozoology just as much as they make fun of your field. Mm-hmm. But whether they want to believe it or not, they are scientists because, quite frankly, we are doing research the best we can. The biggest issue with the Bigfoot research, quite frankly, is there's lots of evidence, there's lots of videos, there's lots of photos, but people don't release it for fear of being ridiculed. And so that's why we, at this point, really only have the Patterson-Gimlin film. Right. And if you take into account some of their abilities, as John and I have discussed, it's, being able to hold up your phone and video something. Well, either your phone's dead or you're too busy pissing yourself.
So, are we speaking that there's abilities that, now, first off, is it Sasquatch or Bigfoot, or is?
They go by both names.
Okay.
In North America. There's basically, these things are reported on all the continents except for Antarctica and Hawaii.
Okay.
So everywhere has them. I mean, the UK, they haven't had any for years for reports.
I just want a birth certificate thing. It's like there's a last name. Or if Sasquatch or Bigfoot is a last name and they have a first name.
Hey, they were called wood. Well, they're called wood buggers in the South.
A wood bugger.
Wood booger.
Oh.
Wood bugger.
Yeah. So I mean, and this is the problem is that if you want to go search historically, you've got to know what the name of the creature was to those people.
I think it's also true because it's there's such niche subjects, like talking about cryptozoology and even talking about just the paranormal to the average person that isn't into it. They're not really going to have any knowledge of it. And they'll also look at you funny, like we've already discussed. But like you said, is that unless you actually did your big research on Bigfoot, Sasquatch, you're not going to know the knowledge of it because it's so niche. You actually have to do the work to actually learn about it.
Well, currently there's more evidence for Sasquatch existing than any one of the people who are commenting on the thing here. There is video evidence. Mm-hmm. There's hair samples that have been identified as an unidentified primate of North America. Mm-hmm. There are scat samples. There's footprints. There's 4 physical pieces of evidence sitting right there that is more than we have for anyone watching this video, that we're not dealing with, AI bots that decided to join us for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those people out there that are commenting on here, for some reason, technically, I can't seem to type anything. I've got to sign into my YouTube account to do that, and I'm not going to. Tom, how you doing back there? And I see that John Buffum is online. Hey, I've known John for years. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely the whole niche thing, right? Like for us, we get together at reunions and stuff with the other paranormal investigators.
Mm-hmm.
And, we just talk as it is. And other people do look at us like we have 6.5 heads. I mean, it's definitely, it's a tough gig, right? I mean, I know that you say like the word science, which is why I generally go pseudoscience, generally because we're really not using a true scientific method. I tend to rather whatever word that is, we use a pragmatic method, just a sense of logic and reasoning.
Now, but Dave, I'll comment on this one. The issue with saying you don't use a scientific method is 99% of the people in the world, including many scientists, do not use it properly.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
No, they don't. And I remember listening to this one guy going on for about an hour on a Bigfoot thing. And it's just like, you're lucky I'm not within range. Otherwise, I'd come and put your head under the water for a while to clear it out. Because, they all say there's the best researchers in the world. They are guided there by how they think. Like, we all think of scientists as these hardcore number guys. And you know what? Half of them are both left and right brain, which means they use their art side as much as their science side. And that is what makes them successful.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. I think
the most science team is probably like CPRI, like that.
Yeah,
that's
they are. I think it would be interesting to have Robert on with Steve, because Robert's a chemist, right? So with Steve being a chemist, and I know he worked for Union Carbide and all that. They're down in Virginia, and we've worked with them a few times. Other CHAPS family members, they are. It's an interesting discussion once we start getting into the science thing, I'm one of those guys where I would rather not just go into the pedantic argument back and forth. So I just take it this way. But certainly, I think it's just fascinating though. But like, how is it that, like say with Bigfoot, and we do have, FLIR and all these other sound, sound devices, pictures, trap cams. Yet we just don't have anything, or we don't seem to have anything, or if we don't research it enough, I guess maybe there's a lot out there of actual more solid footage. Kind of like Yeti and everything else, we just don't have it.
Well, I mean, I can jump in on that. I mean, there are other credible pieces of footage out there. They're not very well known unless, like you guys said, unless you really dive into the subject, you don't really see it. So that's part of the problem there. But there's also a portion of this subject matter that is very paranormal, that really crosses over into the possibility of interdimensionality realms, parallel worlds, that kind of thing.
Right.
There's a lot of theories that are flying around right now, and we're going to dive into some examples and stuff a little bit as we go along. But that's why I kind of wanted to jump in on here, because you guys are kind of, well, in my opinion, you've been doing what you do for a while. So, I mean, you're kind of experts or professionals, at least in your field. Me, I'm just kind of an armchair researcher. But I think discussions need to happen to bring more knowledge to light. There is something going on with this subject that is not just flesh and blood. And there's a lot of the, celebrity top names out there in this field that who were dead set for their entire careers that this was a flesh and blood animal creature. It was just very elusive and they couldn't find it. A lot of those people have changed their tone on that and have gone over to the paranormal.
Okay, so if I can interrupt there, you're saying that, and I am completely ignorant to this topic. I've focused on ghosties. When it comes to Bigfoot, then you're saying that this isn't just a sentient being, that this is something of another. It's like you say paranormal, that it's not necessarily of a physical level, that it's a metaphysical being.
Yeah, there's a lot of cases of very strange things, as well as UFO connections, and seeing them within the same contact time or time frame or areas of seeing UFOs or lights in the sky. So there's a lot of strange stuff going on. This isn't something I kind of forgot to bring this up when I was talking with Steve last night, but there's a pretty, pretty popular documentary on YouTube right now called, I think it's the Alien Bigfoot Connection or Bigfoot Alien Connection. It's worth a watch, worth an hour of your time. And it kind of goes over a lot of the whole spectrum of the paranormal and some of the hot spots of where this stuff is going on and some of the research that's happening at these places. It's there's more to it than just the surface. Like I said, there's evidence that these things can basically teleport, coming through portals. It runs the gambit, appearing and disappearing at will, having psychic abilities, telepathy, telekinesis. It runs the gambit.
How would you explain it? Sorry, how would you explain it to someone who is like dead set on not believing in it? And I only say that because like we're hearing a lot of like really good details on like the sightings of it, but like for someone who's actually just struggling to believe in it, because I'm sure there's many of them out there, how would you guys like give out the information to really draw them into believing it?
Well, I mean, part of it is you got to start with, learn the basics, go to the four horsemen of the Sasquatch research, as they always said. I mean, those guys were not believers in, any of the paranormal stuff. In fact, most of them didn't even believe Sasquatch existed out of the Northwest woods, for instance, Canada, west coast of Canada, and down into the US there. But quite frankly, when you start looking at this stuff, even if you look at it as a scientist, it doesn't matter what the experiment is running. If you keep getting a particular signal all the time, there is something to that signal. You don't know what it is. But when you keep seeing that all the time, that is something that's worth investigating. And this is how I would approach with the paranormal with respect to Bigfoot. I mean, you guys have probably experienced this, but there's several times that people do have their cameras going, Bigfoot shows up, batteries are dead. All the batteries, not the batteries in their phones or video cameras. It happens with those as well as spare ones in their bags. That's number one. Trail cams, they seem to detect them somehow. How are they detecting these things? They think it's possibly smell, or they're hearing something, or they're seeing in the infrared. The thing is, we have a lot of unanswered questions about these things. We don't even know what their mental capabilities are. There's indications these guys have a full-blown language that we don't understand. Analysis on a lot of their sounds, like the Sierra sounds or what's called samurai chatter, show that there are patterns, that there are indeed language present within these guys. And, the biggest thing that we as a species have to get over is our own damned arrogance. We are not the smartest thing on this planet, by far. You look at an octopus can figure out things quicker than most people. And I was just watching a video of one. The guy put it all the way through this little maze for it to go get its prizes. I was watching a guy who managed to get squirrels to go through a complete maze to get to the final reward, and all of it was figuring out puzzles. And they were doing a pretty good job. And when you start getting upon these things as John was saying, this teleportation. Well, guess what? We still don't understand science at its basic on this planet. Like, everything is always by our rules. The thing is nature is not by our rules. So who's to say in the past that our ancestors didn't have these abilities? Who's to say, that we didn't teleport at one point in the past? So we have all these things that show up continuously. There's so many reports of teleportation. There's so many reports of following footsteps in the middle of a snowfield. You have a whole pathway going in the middle of the field. It disappears. And then you have the famous mind speak as well. There's been several people, including Les Stroud and Bobo Fay of Finding Bigfoot, who basically said they had these things talking in their heads. It's sure, it's a jump. There's always going to be skeptics on this, and we need healthy skeptics because that's how we move forward.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think like in a nutshell too, like is kind of back to what I said. It's like, there's surface level people who are basically, they'll walk around with blinders because that makes life simple. Life is easy, and they focus on what they need to focus on in their life, and they move on. There's other people who are more inquisitive, and they need to know why something operates the way it does. And there's other people in that sort of field who have a biased opinion when it comes to that. And they're looking for a certain answer when they go in. And if they don't get it, well, then that's it. And it's not real. There's other people like myself who are, I'm open to all possibilities. Like Steve said, we're just beings on this planet. We have nothing figured out. It's just our own definition of what we know. But science is continually evolving. It's never a solid thing. It is continually evolving, and theories and facts evolve as time and technology improves.
No doubt. You just totally described the way it is on, we'll say, spirit research too, right? You've got those that have got their mindset that it's all psychic. The other minds where it's mostly pragmatic. And I think you got to do it where you're inspired to do it, or what your capacity is, right? If you're not in tuned individual to those kind of wavelengths, so you're probably not going to focus on the psychic side of things. Certainly, like even with the Bigfoot side of things. To me, it's really interesting and cool. Be a great opportunity to get out and do these sort of things. I just don't know what kind of resource to touch to get to that, or even what I'd be looking for. And I have so much that I get involved with the spirit research, shall we say, that's consumed my life, except for the fact that it's turned into probably like the Bigfoot side of things, a political socio argument and a lot of BS that goes behind it. I got to ask you then, population, Bigfoot population, where, how much, is it like I don't know how many would be in Oshawa?
Yeah, that's a good question. Many people have tried to estimate that, and we have no answers because, quite frankly, these things are the masters of hide and seek. And if you throw in sudden teleportation to somewhere else, if these things don't want to be found, they're not going to find you.
Do they not have features that you could distinguish, that's Sasquatch, A, and that's Sasquatch B, and kind of count that way? Do they have any features that differ? You
can off of their footprints, actually. Even getting to the footprints, they found what's called the mid-tarsal ridge in the foot, which is something we humans do not have, which is how you know that those are real footprints from them. Because quite frankly, we can't reproduce the gait of these things at all as humans. If you want to change us into a Bigfoot, you have to break our two elbows or two knees, surgically move them down. So this is when people start saying people dressing up in monkey suits. You can tell whether it's real or fake easily just by the walk.
Yeah, look into Lloyd Pye's work or Dr. Meldrum's work as well with the tracks that he's recovered. Tons of research going up to that.
You've got hair color as well. And, some of them they've spotted injured ones, ones that, limp or something, or maybe they've got a deformed foot. So, and I know just listening to, Cliff Barrickman, he's managed to track, the same creature through different areas based upon the footprint alone. So it's possible.
And I think we talked about this last time, like via the chat, but they don't like reproduce in the way that humans reproduce, correct? They're like, how are they populating?
Wait,
we don't know.
So
well, we don't know, but evidence would suggest that they travel in family groups, and that they mimic basically ancient human relic hybrid of some kind with some sort of supernatural abilities. Is basically in a nutshell where we're at.
So they're not.
And then you get into rogue males as well that have been kicked out of the family groups because that's it's basically what they do. I mean, the one thing that isn't talked about, and you know what, screw it, I'll bring it up, is that no. John's probably heard this one for sure. At least I hope you have, John. It has been Sasquatch have been observed going after horses, like the rogue males, to relieve their stress.
Yeah, I've heard some funny stories of some things like that. You know, and not just that. I mean, even having relationships with human beings. And that gets into a lot of the sort of 411 missing stuff.
So, like, are there pregnant Sasquatches, or are they just like populating like?
Well, in the Patterson Gimlin film, she was a female. You could see the breast bobbing around in the stabilized videos now. And the current belief is, and this is something that came up about 2 weeks ago, believe it or not, is that the Patterson Gimlin film, it has another 10 seconds no one's ever seen. It's supposed to show a baby Sasquatch. But it was basically believed she was mothering a young one, and she stayed in the area to be observed to lead everyone away from the young one.
So do they like copulate through their back or something? You're saying I'm still stuck on this, so that I can find.
No, their anatomy is witnesses have testified seeing either male or female genitalia.
Is this available on like Pornhub or something that we can?
No, but you can buy it on Amazon erotica books.
There's probably some role-playing stuff there.
Well, some engineer was making $10,000 a month on Bigfoot erotica, so talking about exactly this topic. So.
Wrong market.
Yes, we are, John. But no, I mean, there's even been people talking about actually having observed young ones. It was either Area X Project or the Olympic Project where they saw the young ones. And there's a video of these things swinging in the trees somewhere down in New York. And they think that was baby Sasquatch as well, because there certainly wasn't any loose chimpanzees or anything in the area at the time.
But okay, so what we're saying that they're on a paranormal spectrum, not sentient like humans, but they seem like they're halfway between ape and humans, just bigger and smarter.
Like anatomically wise.
Anatomically, I'm not saying about that they grew to that, but I'm still trying to get in my head because also, we've spoken about, or we have not spoken, but I've read in the past about their community villages and their houses that they built. But if they're a paranormal teleportation in and out of realm portal thing, then why would they have to have these homes? And why are they of an anatomical shape? Et cetera, et cetera. I'm still trying to get that rationale and reasoning that they're not just something we haven't found yet or hunted. I want to know what Bigfoot tastes like.
Really, Dave? Come on.
Well, I meant like barbecue. I'm speaking like going to like a good barbecue joint. They seem to have everything else there, but Bigfoot might be.
No, but I mean, at the end of the day, if they originated here, they're still bound by the laws of our nature. So they have to have cell meiosis, mitosis, all that happening. Okay. So and
they're here on a parallel sort of.
Yeah.
It might not be interdimensional. It might be just like here, but a parallel thing, and somehow they can transition, and that might be just a property of psychic abilities. Like, think of this a lot in the same aspect of what you guys are doing and what you guys are doing with
I I guess that's a good way of putting
ghost research or whatever. Like, it's the same thing, and it kind of goes back to what you asked before about, like, how would you explain this to somebody? It's the same thing. Like, do you believe in ghosts? What's your belief in the afterlife? You know, is it a religious thing? Are you an atheist? Do you just believe that you die and that's it? That's the end of story? Do you get reincarnated? Like, we don't know, and that's the thing. But the evidence is very broad that they have a lot of very strange skills that are very supernatural, outside of what we can do, but at the same time seem to be some sort of a earthbound creature.
Yeah. Yeah, and I understand it, and I'm not trying to be chide. I'm just chirping for the sheer factor of keeping conversation fly that way. But I do understand what you're saying, because if you take it to like the world of ghosts, you know what? Like, I grew up in a church full of psychics. I grew up in a spiritualist church, so I was and my research has nothing to do with that whatsoever. I let all that go. I'm primarily an atheist, frankly, but I've heard and felt, on places that shouldn't. That didn't sound like it was starting off to be a good word there. I've heard and felt things that I shouldn't have logically, enough that I want to dig and find more, right? And so I get what you're saying there, right? And it's all about your in-driven passion for something and or your own experience. I know that I've never had a crypto-ish, I don't know what you want to call that, type of experience in my life. And maybe that's because most of my life I was in suburban Oshawa, lots of lights in the city, and even as an adult, I've never lived in the country. Even when I lived up in Pembroke, which is nearly the wasteland, we're still in the city portion of it. And where you're saying, Steve, about, our loss of connection to the country, and both of you guys live further out, and something I'm a little jealous of, because you're right. I don't have that inbound grab to the country. Even when I'm at the trailer, I'm kind of like sort of wanting to get home because it's kind of inconvenient.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing I can say is, since COVID, when we were all in isolation, I can tell you now, the amount of nature that was coming out into the vineyard in the day you normally wouldn't see was incredible.
Really?
I mean, I was getting within 10 feet of coyotes. I have deer that aren't running from me. I got vultures hoping I'm going to drop on the ground and they can have a meal out of me. And I'm still seeing all this nature, like, compared to my first couple of years in the vineyard where I saw almost nothing. I see stuff almost about daily right now, I see in the comments someone brought up about caveman there. I'll do a quick one on that one. It's possible. One of the theories is that Bigfoot is a paranthropus, which is one of our ancestors, or it's an offshoot of one of these paranthropus. And so it is quite possible, yes, it is like a caveman. So, I mean, if you look at 100,000 years ago, there was about 8 or 9 species of human to be living on the planet at the same time. And now we're down to 1. So it's kind of crazy that there's only just one of us left. So,
It's kind of interesting too to think about like that too, like about if it is some sort of an ancestor of ours or a branch off, or we're a branch off of it or something, but we're still part of the same family. But all this other crazy kind of paranormal stuff that goes along with it, how do you explain that? For me, it kind of comes down to, well, kind of magic, really.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you take a look at the beliefs of all the Aboriginals in North America. Look at the stuff they used to do and the connection they had. It's people that can see energies around them, and this is what I attribute to. Is it's a movement of energies from one place to another, and that, to me, I believe that's what guides me in a lot of my life. And the more you tap into these things, the more you have the abilities to do different things.
And the interesting thing to note too is sort of that pattern of when you seem to notice them or these beings, or start like really sort of studying them, having interaction type of studying. real scientific studying where you're capturing samples, you're getting audio, you're getting sort of back and forth type of interaction. The more you study them, they seem to study you.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you look at our modern world, take someone from 200 years ago, put them in the middle of your living room right now. What are they going to think everything is magic, right?
Yep.
And it's because they don't understand. It's the same thing with us with respect to, Bigfoot. Until we actually have one of these and we can study it, we don't know what's going on. Like, I mean, these things are supposed to put out infrasound, and it's believed that, the analysis of their calls and that indicates they might have 2 sets of vocal cords. We have 1.
Mm-hmm.
What else do they have that we don't have? Is their pineal gland bigger? Because the pineal gland is supposed to be the center of everything that, you can do psychically. So until we have them, we don't know. And this is the thing. It's us looking at Bigfoot is like the 200-year-old guy sitting in the room right now looking at that everything is magic, because that's the term we use when we don't fully understand what's going on.
Exactly.
How old would Bigfoot get?
Oh, yeah, well put.
Like, what kind of age range do these big feet be? Is that plural? Big feet?
Well, the one from the Patterson Gimlin film, I believe it was observed into the 90s, if I remember correctly. And she was already of an age where she clearly had children already, so 40, 50 old. I mean, we're
not talking like a 200, 300-year-old animal like the Greenland shark or anything where it's...
Well, we don't know until we have a very publicly open, scientifically a body to study and
it's
do that
not like
kind of research.
And we can't carbon date it either.
It's open to debate. Could be some sort of being that can live thousands of years. Who knows how fast they grow?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say today I say, all right, screw it. You know what? I've been doing paranormal spiritual research for 30 years this year. I want to get into the crypto side of things, and I want to start with Bigfoot. I live in Oshawa, GTA, shithole of Canada. Where do I go? Where do we as a group now go set up a hunt?
We go visit John, I think, is the first spot.
Orangeville.
Yeah, and then the second spot would be Sioux Lookout.
That's a drive.
I can definitely think of some areas. Mono Cliffs Provincial Park, sort of just outside here, is an interesting area. I've personally found some odd tree structures that, and a few other things in there. I've had some kind of weird things happen in there, and it's the perfect kind of habitat. And I can kind of go into that more if you want, but I mean, I know we're limited to time here, and this is a very broad subject that we can touch on everything. So
good 15 minutes, John. Let's talk about habitat, please.
And as well, I've had some people share some of their experiences in my area as well, and some very interesting things. So. Could be in my area. I don't know. I kind of have a rolling theory that sort of the Oak Ridge Moraine sort of runs, I guess, along the Niagara region and up towards sort of Tobermory. If you think of like the Bruce Trail.
Yeah.
Right.
Basically the run of the Bruce Trail. So, you're kind of getting down towards Buffalo, New York. So, and from New York, you have the Appalachian Mountain Range. Which is honestly, a huge hot spot, just as much, if not more as much, as the Pacific Northwest.
And John, I didn't know if you know this or not, but about 20 minutes outside of Buffalo is a big Bigfoot hotspot.
Oh yeah,
it's right along the Niagara River.
Well, there you go, right? And
so that
water seems to be rivers where they can travel through. Gives them cover as well. There's a lot of caves because, the Mono Cliffs area, it's a limestone caves. It's an old million-year-old limestone that's risen up. And you have this kind of colliding ecosystems of this highland and lowland, which seems to be a great sort of habitat for a lot of animals, especially bigger mammals.
Right. And access to outlet malls. Unfortunately, though, there's buffalo. But so, all right, So we need to set something up because I've got to get it. Like, I don't know what equipment would I have, or what would I need to bring?
Bring it all, because the energy fields. You have those meters, I assume, right? I can't remember their name off the top of my head.
Yeah.
No one has ever, to my knowledge, no one has ever done EMF measurements around a Sasquatch sighting, and that might be an interesting piece of data.
Possibly so. I mean, it's definitely something circumstantial that we occasionally use.
Yeah.
More to measure, ungrounded.
Yeah, we don't use it like in Supernatural where we walk around. Oh my God, occasionally we might
We did used to use it a lot more. But
we did use the K2 more, and like the EMF, I don't even know the last time that we've ever been like, oh my God, it's making this sound, like Sam and Dean doing Supernatural, where they base their entire, theory off of an EMF spike. So
no, it's there's a lot of different things, and I mean, FLIRs come up for sure. They've been used a lot.
Mm-hmm. We run with one of them.
Yeah, so I mean, and you might not even have to go up as far as Sioux Lookout. I mean, if they're starting in Orangeville, I mean, in the 70s there was a sighting in Peterborough, for crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you got north of North Bay, a couple hours in between North Bay and Timmins, I've driven through there. There's lots of spots in there that they can hide, and there's a lot to eat.
I guess maybe that's one thing that the one thing with paranormal research on the spirit side is you're sort of affixed on a location. Whereas, if you're talking about Bigfoot, you got nothing but location. It's almost like UFO, right? I mean, like, what do I do? Certainly, I can look at, the monitoring equipment and video capture. It's certainly an interesting way to be. Had to go change the baby, eh, John?
No, he was just getting a little upset, so I just had to calm down. Gave him some crayons and stuff to color with, so he's all happy now.
When Fiona was a little girl and she'd cry, I literally would put her in the room with a mattress in front of the door so I couldn't hear it.
We used to do that to you when you were a little teenager.
Yeah, well, like when I was a little teenager, I was even that small. Now I'm not small, but a little wider.
Especially after the incident at the Janosh.
Yeah. Another thing I was going to say is, you don't necessarily need to go anywhere. It's been reported these things have shown up in people's bedrooms at night.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Materialized, in front of them.
Yeah.
There's people who have grown up with these things and had a childhood relationship with these things. These are things that are reported. I'm not saying this is fact. These are things, but these are things that get reported over and over and over and over and over and over again. And there are literally hundreds of thousands of reports, and you can go back right to the beginning of North American history.
Yeah.
Back even to when Eric the Red and the Vikings came over, they made records of running into giant wild hairy people that traded with the indigenous people, but they were their own tribe.
Yeah.
So these things go way back in especially native indigenous cultures. That's why we have these different names: Bigfoot, Sasquatch. They get referred to. They go by hundreds of names within the indigenous cultures around North America. Each tribe has their own name and their own mythological stories and lore about these things. To a lot of them, they are flesh and blood tribe of people that they've traded with. To others, they're just another sort of mythical creature or like a god that has powers. So it's that, to me, that's what really makes it so interesting. But back to what I was saying is it seems to be a lot of a spiritual thing that you can sort of meditate and manifest an interaction anywhere, anytime, within your own home.
Yeah.
It's something. It's fascinating for me because it's all fresh and new, really. Like for
I
me,
mean,
I
for me,
remember-
it's great to get outside, and I love to get out in the wilderness. And to me, in that aspect, that's how I'd like to see one out, out in the woods, not in my bedroom. But
yeah, of course. I mean, like Steve mentioned, the Legend of Boggy Creek, and look, I mean, Steve and I are same age, and I remember that when I was a kid, and I haven't seen it since I was a kid. Now I'm going to have to find it somewhere.
It's on YouTube.
But is it on YouTube? All right. Well, you know what? I'm a bachelor this weekend. She's off seeing the grandkids, so I'm going to watch it. And I think I on Tubi looked up and put on watch list that Finding Bigfoot or whatever you had mentioned earlier, which I'll get into. You know, for me, it's all fresh and new, and I'm all about something fresh and new. Not that I'm bored of the ghost, but you know, we've been there, done that, and continued. But I gotta see it with that. I didn't realize, honestly, even with my own crowd that watches the show, how far back this goes with everybody and their experiences, right? And it seems to be more of that than what we do.
Well, the thing is one thing I always take to heart is when the Aboriginals tell you something, it's probably true. That has been proven time and time and time and time again. When they were looking for the 2 missing boats up in the Northwest Territories there, they told these guys where they were, and they looked everywhere but those places, and guess where they found them? There. And you know, during one of the plagues that was ravaging the Aboriginals on the West Coast, apparently there was communication with Bigfoot would come into their camps. They would have the same disease, and they'd be looking around for help. And all these guys could do was say, "Sorry, we can't help ourselves," and they would just shake their heads and walk out. You know, like there's reports of that amongst the Aboriginals. So,
interesting. I mean, it's strange for me because obviously it's so fresh and I'm so under researched in the topic, but it's incredibly fascinating. I am glad that we focused a show on intro of this to see what you guys come up with for the whole cryptid thing for the next one. So, okay, we are sitting about, well, damn it, 8:53. So we got about 7 minutes left, shorter there. Obviously, we can carry some of these conversations on to the next episode. Obviously, we're going to have an episode after that. And I get the feeling that we're probably going to see some opportunities this summer for maybe some, invested opportunity to investigate further. You know what, on an actual physical level. I mean, like, enough of the bullshit TikToking around. Let's get out there and actually see, because I want to learn. I'm more than happy to be like, damn, show me. Here's some equipment. But I want to see or try and feel. And you know, being a city kid, and I'm more than willing to admit, like, I'm a suburban city kid, probably out in the bush, I might sense a lot that somebody who's used to the bush might not, right? You know, because it's fresh. Who knows, right? Your beginner's luck or whatever. But I'd be in for that. So that would be
good
really
point.
awesome.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
and you're the right size. You're the right size. We can dress you as a kid, and that'll bring them in too.
Now, Fiona will tell you that when I used to research, and she was younger than she is now, 12, 13, I used to take her on investigations and leave her alone with a session, and we'd all leave the house. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the way it goes. That's what kids are useful for. I've got.
Well, I mean, there's been reports where they have played recordings of babies crying, and they come in looking what the hell's going on.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and there's also, and on the same place that they did this, they also went searching through the woods, and they found tree structures that if you are sitting in that tree structure, you can watch whatever's going on the property, but they can't see you because of how it was built. It's very interesting.
Yeah, they seem to like to watch us.
Yeah, I know. The original peeping toms, right?
Especially the kids and the women. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's always, as John and I were discussing last night, there's always a lot more activity, you know, if a husband is away for a while and it's just the woman left at the farm place or wherever they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it would be wise if we went on an investigation and the boys went out to have a beer and left the females behind. Okay.
Well, it depends. Might draw them in. That might be what you need to have an encounter. Maybe us guys can't.
Apparently, while cooking bacon, and all kidding aside, what was it? There was one episode I was listening to. I think it was Sasquatch Chronicles, John. They were talking about that Bigfoot had a brand preference for beer.
Yeah,
yep.
I'm pretty sure I heard that one.
Yeah, they gave him different beers, and he always went for the one kind of beer. That was it.
Yeah.
Yes, we have Goldilocks.
There you go.
All right, so we're hitting there. Guys, I really, really want to appreciate the night you've spent with us. It's been a nice flowing conversation, and now I've got all kinds of shit that I've got to research so that I'm prepared for our next conversation, which will probably be even more mind-blowing.
It'll be other cryptids. We're already working on it, aren't we, John?
Good.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to be yapping within the next week about that kind of stuff, and I know in a few weeks I'm on vacation for 11 days, so I have to figure that out. But I want to thank you. Everybody else that was looking, I'm sorry I didn't make any comments on the chat board. I have to sign into something to be able to do that, but I do see you all. As always, my daughter, Fiona, thank you so much
Thank you for having us, Dave. And Fiona.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
I'm looking forward to the next show. I really am.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Have an excellent night, people.
Just want to make a quick shout out to Tom. I'll get in touch with you, Tom. I saw your comments. We'll get in touch.
Have a good night, guys.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.